Yo, what up guys, Travic here, and today I want to talk about the cast and stun build that I've been playing over the last couple of days. This build has been an absolute blast to play, and if you haven't seen it, well, let's jump into a map and we'll talk about what's going on, and I'll give you guys a quick rundown. Now, Secrets of the Atlas came out very recently, and I've been having an absolute blast. As some of you may know, if you follow along with what I started doing, you'll know that I started the league playing my Volcanic Fissure of Snaking, and eventually I swapped into Cast and Stun. Cast and Stun was an absolute easy transition once you had a couple of core pieces of gear that we'll go over today. And essentially what I wanted to do was I wanted to use my Marauder to focus and pretty much tailor its ability to farm. Now what you're going to see today is pretty cool. Essentially, Cast and Stun allows me to just do exactly what you're witnessing right now. We are hands off the keyboard, we are able to do things like ultimatum, and we can just sit here and let the mechanic pretty much farm itself. This build is absolutely fantastic at doing content like this. It blows up entire screens. I really don't need to do a whole lot other than just sit here and blow everything up, and ultimatum turned out to be a pretty profitable mechanic, especially relatively early. Now with ultimatum, there's a bunch of scarabs that you can get and things that you can make this farm even better, and you know, that's something I'm going to be doing now that scarab availability is a little bit more accessible. But overall, this character has been an absolute monster to play, and essentially how it works is we stack a lot of recoup, and you can see our life is bouncing all around over here, and essentially we get to just be AFK farming our heart's content out. Now, before we go any deeper into this character, how it's built and stuff like that, let's just run over the basics of mechanics. Essentially what happens is your character is built and designed that when it is hit, it will trigger a couple of things. You're going to notice purple beams falling out of the sky. Those are firestorm of pelting. You're going to notice blue or green little spikes coming out of the sky. That is blade storm. You're going to see that there's some frost bombs everywhere, and essentially every time we get hit, we are just able to, you know, have a whole lot of spells come out. We kill monsters, they explode due to Chieftain explode, and we're able to just kind of live our lives however we want, and we're able to just sit here, farm our ultimatum, go do whatever we want to do, pay attention every so often to just restart the next round, and then we get to collect all of the loot that we want from the event, and we feel really good about ourselves. Now, everybody's gonna be asking me, well, what about the gear? What about the tree? How does it work? Before we get into that, I have to give credit where credit's due. First and foremost, this build is not my design or creation. I have been following along on the great work of this gentleman, Emiracle. He puts out a cast and stun build pretty much every league forever. He does God's work for cast and stun, and he was the true inspiration or the reason why I started doing this. And I'm going to be including his information down below for you. So I just want to make sure that you guys are aware. A great person to subscribe to, and you know, to check out his videos. Essentially what he does is he makes these videos and he goes over everything just like we're doing today, and he has a spreadsheet that's really good about if you want to take this build to the next level. Granted, moving on with this build and getting upgrades and stuff is going to get really expensive very quick, as a lot of people play this, but this will give you a lot of the information that you need to really take the build from where I have it right now to the upper and higher tiers to push crazier and crazier content. Now let's go over what's going on. First and foremost, I am level 97. It has been an absolute blast and super easy to level to this character. I swapped over to this character about level 90 from my Volcanic Fissure of Snaking guy, and I picked up a lot of the gear that I needed relatively early on the cheaper side of things, like I had mentioned Saturday of the league start. Essentially, what you need to do to swap over if you're playing, say, Volcanic Fissure of Snaking, or if you want to get started playing this build, you need one or two very important things. First and foremost, you need a jewel called Blood Notch before you even consider swapping. Blood Notch pretty much says damage taken from stunning hits is recovered as life. Since the entire build is revolving around us getting hit and stunned, Blood Notch is the absolute positive way that we survive. Blood Notch right now at the time of recording is about 6.5, 7 divines. Saturday afternoon, it was like 3-ish, between 3 and 6 divines when I bought it. A few days ago, it was about 20 divines. If this jewel pops up and down all over the place as we get later and later into the league, it's only going to come down, making it a lot more accessible for people to get into it. I do think this jewel will stay relatively in the 5 to 6, maybe 10 div range, depending on the role. As far as the roll goes, you really want a 50% roll to get started. It's pretty much the minimum breakpoint to get involved. Now, the next jewel that you're going to need is another jewel that I have up here. It's called Immutable Force. Ideally, with Immutable Force, this jewel allows you to pretty much have stun and block recovery. Since we're constantly getting stunned, we're constantly getting hit by a bunch of mobs, you want to be able to still move your character and play the game. Otherwise, you just sit there like a chicken with its head's cut off, and you just kind of like blah 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 blah, and you don't really know what you're doing. Now, Immutable Force, relatively on the cheaper side, you can see it's about 1.72 divs. Now, Emiracle goes into a little bit more detail about Immutable Force and how there are breakpoints between 961 and just, non 961 jewels. 961 running about 8 divs. I've been playing with a 520. I have not noticed a difference. I am still able to move and interact with my character. It's been an absolutely fantastic blast. I haven't had any problems at all. These are the 2 jewels that I would really recommend starting with before you think about moving on over and swapping your character to playing the whole cast when stun angle. Now, other things that you're going to need. Let's talk about the gear, and then we'll go a little bit deeper into the tree and we'll figure it out from there. As far as our gear goes, we need a couple of things. First and foremost, because we're playing a stun build and a stun variant, you're going to need this Valrium ring. It says that stun threshold is based on energy shield instead of life. And this is pretty much core to the build. This ring without the bleeding can't be inflicted on you is really cheap. You're talking about a 1 chaos ring that really ties the build together. I got very lucky. A friend of mine corrupted it. He found when he corrupted a hit, bleeding cannot be inflicted on you. So this is the one that I've been using. But essentially, you can get this ring nicely corrupted. You can get, a nice all res roll. There's a lot of, really cool corruptions on this ring that you can get, but essentially this just makes it so that our stun threshold is based on our energy shield. You can see we have very little energy shield, and it makes it really easy for our character to get chain stunned and just cast all of our spells. And we don't worry about the stun because we have Immutable Force, so that makes it really simple. Next on the list, we have Cloak of Flames. Cloak of Flames pretty much says 40% physical damage taken is converted to fire damage. This is a big defensive layer for us. This armor is pretty mandatory as it gives you a lot of huge defenses. Inside of our armor, we have the Firestorm of Pelting. Those were the big purple dots you saw falling out of the sky, dealing a lot of damage. We have Cast When Stun, pretty much the entire concept of the build. We have Flame Surge to give us a little bit of extra burning damage. I do need to eventually quality this as I get more jewels. We have Spell Cascade, which I am also going to quality as well. We have Blade Fall, which, you can quality as well to give you more blades. You probably won't have enough dex to level this the entire way up unless you get more specialized gear. And we have Frost Bomb, giving us the ability to pretty much just stop life regeneration on all of the enemies. This is our first cast when setup, and this is in our body armor. And you'll see if you compare the starter variant, like I'm playing right now, to a more in-depth variant, the jewels and the gems and stuff change up a little bit, so just keep an eye on what's going on. Next, we have our boots. Our boots are just going to be the next area where we have our next cast when stun. Now, keep in mind, you could put the cast when stun in other areas, either your helmet or your gloves. I have mine in my boots, so we'll jump on over to the boots. Our boots are going to have another cast when stun setup, like I mentioned. We're going to have Deadly Ailments, which I do need the quality as well. Our Detonating Dead of Scavenging, which is going to be a lot of our fire damage and explosions. Detonating Dead of Scavenging targets a corpse, causing it to explode, dealing fire damage. The explosion is not affected by modifiers of spell damage, cannot be reflected, and cannot target corpses that have been created by skills. So all of the mobs that we kill from our Blade Fall and Firestorm, essentially they get exploded, and because we're chieftain, we can get nice big explosions, and we proliferate that and deal a whole bunch of damage. And we have burning damage support to give us a little bit of extra damage. Our boots on this character are very simple: cold resist, life resist, some max life, intelligence. We don't really need the cold resist because we're chieftain and we can get a whole bunch of resistances from being chieftain, but we rolled what we rolled. Eventually I'll harvest craft the cold to fire to get a little bit more uncapped fire resistance. As far as implicits on the boots go, life regeneration is really good, and as I get more Searing Exarch, I think they're embers, I will convert the cold resistance eventually to max fire resistance. Now, moving on over, we have our belt, we have Immortal Flesh, pretty self-explanatory to anybody who's played RF before. Just gives you regenerate life, max life, and that's pretty much it. It's just a lot of life regeneration. Eventually, I'll get myself a nice Stygian Vice with resistances, chaos resistance, life is pretty much enough to just kind of cover what's going on. Our gloves, very straightforward, high dex roll so we can wear a lot of the gear. Once again, chaos resistance, we hit a little bit of cold resistance on it. We'd like it to be fire resistance, that's fine. We have more max life, and something very important with our gloves need to have fire damage leeches life. It helps keep us sustaining and alive, and we have ignites you inflicts spread to enemies within 1.2 meters. Eventually, this ignite roll you can get on a cluster jewel to make things a little bit easier, but we right now have it on our gloves because we, in this current variation, do not have cluster jewels, and eventually when we move over to cluster jewels, we'll be able to change up our gloves a little bit. Moving on up, you're going to notice another ring, the Hateful Accuser. This ring is pretty mandatory, I would say. This ring gives you something called Penance Mark. Penance Mark is a skill on my hotbar down here. It curses an enemy, causing them to spawn multiple phantasms when hit. The enemy will be pretty much marked. So TLDR on this ring, when you're fighting like a single target, just say you just run into the Black Knight, or you run into Omni, or you're doing a sim or whatever, and it's one mob. You curse the one mob, that one mob has the curse, he hits you, you cast when stun back. Because he's cursed and we spam this curse on the mob, he essentially spawns 3 little dudes. Those 3 little dudes have very little health. You essentially kill them almost immediately because of your Firestorm or Pelting and your Bladestorm. Hopefully, thanks to Chieftain, they explode. They explode for 500% of their life. They leave a huge ignite. The mob gets ignited, and boom, he dies. Without this ring, you pretty much need something like Val Breach to give you enough single target to be able to blow things up. Our weapon, my weapon is real trash, real bad. My weapon is just percent fire damage with crafted fire damage over time. I threw a couple of Scorched Fossils out of Void Scepter, and this is what I got. Eventually, I would like to get a nice crafted base. I would essentially buy something that has a dot multi-fracture and then just hit it with Scorched Fossils to get percent fire damage and then craft on fire damage over time. There's probably infinitely better weapons that you can get, but this is just to showcase the absolute minimum and how I've been playing it with the absolute minimum. Inside of our weapon, we have Cast and Stun Punishment. This is just giving us punishment, and punishment's an ability that just pretty much debilitates your enemies, giving them less movement speed and less damage. And essentially, punishment is just pretty good. I would eventually quality this as well. But because we have Cast and Stun Punishment and we have the Hateful Accuser, this is why we spam the Hateful Accuser. It's just a lot easier than taking out the Cast and Stun on the punishment, and you can have the 2 curses just kind of overriding each other, dealing with each other. Our helmet, my helmet is real bad. My helmet is as minimum gets. I grabbed an Essence of Horror off the currency exchange. I hit my helmet one time and I threw my helmet on. Emiracle goes over great in his guide about how to make the helmet really nice. Essentially, you're going to get Essences of Horror and you're going to roll your helmet until you hit burning damage or until you hit concentrated effect. Essentially, you do this because if you do the gem setup properly, I know I said earlier you can move things around, but if you do the gem setup properly, you're going to have Righteous Fire in your helmet, and we're going to use our helmet to, to juice up our Righteous Fire really nicely. You notice inside of maps I had Righteous Fire. Righteous Fire, while it's not doing a whole lot, is doing enough to help us kill white mobs or very small weak mobs to get the chain of explosions going nicely. We have Righteous Fire with LE Focus, efficacy support, and burning damage. Eventually, our helmet gets nicely crafted, and we can get a lot of benefits out of our helmet. As far as our amulet goes, we would really like Defiance of Destiny. Defiance of Destiny is really expensive, so we just have an amulet right now that gives us a little bit of int, some resistances, some chaos resistance, and life. Eventually, until I get Defiance of Destiny, I would like to upgrade this amulet to have something like dot multi resistance and life. Like I mentioned, my gear is extremely basic. I wanted to take the outright most minimum that I needed to swap and start farming and showcase it to you guys. And then lastly, our shield is Prism Guardian. Eventually we upgrade to a nice Shaper shield with like socketed gems, have RMR and stuff like that. But Prism Guardian says that socketed gems have 30% increase reservation efficiency. It gives us some dexterity, some gem levels, and it just makes everything really nice. This is really good for things like Purity of Fire. It helps us to level our Purity of Fire. I tried to crop mine to 21 Purity of Fire. I missed, I hit Val and Purity of Fire. You don't need Val and Purity of Fire. You just want a 21 or level 21 Purity of Fire to help with the breakpoints of your fire resistance. Because how it stands right now, when I press my flask, I'm only at 88. If this was level 21, I would be at 89. If I had the boot implicit, I would be at 90. So I need to eventually fix this and eventually fix the boots. As far as other things go, you're going to need flask for this build. They're essential to this build and very important. Now your flask, you're going to notice that I have on all of the flasks gain charges when hit. Ideally, all of your flasks have 3 gain charges when hit, and they have really nice suffixes. You would like the following suffixes: damage taken from hits is leeches life during effect, which is a crafted modifier. You would like immunity to poison. You would like immunity to shock. You would like immunity to bleed and corrupted blood, unless you have the corrupted ring and corrupted blood immunity. And you would like to have chance to free shocking ignite. Now, the free shocking ignite, you want to have it over 30% or roughly 30% so that you are capped on your ignite chance while the flask effect is going on. And the other flask suffixes are really simple. You can come on over to the beast crafting bench and you can look up flask. You could scroll down to utility flask and you can pretty much just craft on the flask effect that you want onto your flask. I didn't know this. I paid a whole lot of money. My buddy Hippie Trippin told me about this and he saved me a whole lot of money. So essentially you can alt spam a flask until you hit gain 3 charges, and then you can go to the menagerie and craft on the suffixes of your flask, saving you a whole lot of money. Now that's the character, that's the tree. Farming strategies, I'm going to save for another video, as this video is going to run a little bit long. Our ascendancy, we are chieftain. We're taking chieftain so that our enemies explode, dealing 500% of their maximum life as fire damage. We get Ramiko sunlight to deal extra damage over time while being stationary. We get Valiko's storm embrace to apply our maximum lightning fire, our maximum lightning and cold resistance to fire. That's what giving us 90 resistance across the board, and cleansing water so that we get lightning and cold resistance at 50% of their fire resistance. That's why we have so much overcapped fire resistance. The rest of the tree is pretty straightforward. My tree doesn't have clusters in it. Eventually I'm going to move to a big boy setup with clusters and everything, but the tree in itself is very straightforward. Just a lot of extra max life. We take the stun wheel down here so that we have it paired with our immutable force. Hits against us cannot be critical. If you've been stunned recently, we get stunned all the time, so we're pretty much always crit immune with air quotes. Champion of the cause for mana reservation. The life mastery here, you see we take all of the life mastery nodes. You're going to take all of the life masteries every single place that you can take it. Blood magic to reduce or remove all of our mana and make everything run off of our life. We have exonerable to give you endurance charges while you're when you get hit, because we're always getting hit. Juggernaut for armor and max life. More endurance charges to pair with exonerable. The blood notch we talked about. Barbarism for max fire resistance life. More fire resistance, more life masteries, more max resistances up here. You cannot be impaled. We have fire mastery here, giving us regenerate 1% of our life per uncapped fire resistance, so we have a ton of life regeneration. Fire damage over here, more max life, reduced cost of skills over life. We have some dexterity node here to give us dex until we fix our gear. Holy Dominion for resistances, chance to shock, freeze, and ignite. Disciple training for more max life, and then you can see the rest of the trees, like I said, just straightforward. More max life, more endurance charges, another wheel here for fire, more wheel over here for more life with purity of flesh, holy fire for damage over time and fire resistance. We're going to take acrimony for damage over time with the mastery, less damage taken from hits over time. We're going to get more life mastery over here. We're going to take infused flesh. This is because we don't have our Defiance of Destiny yet. Breath of Flames, and we have another jewel socket here giving us corrupted blood. Now, something to note talking about the tree, because you're going to look at the POB. You're going to notice that we don't take the fire damage over time multiplier here because we don't have mage blood. We need to make sure that we have capped ignite chance. I was originally running around without capped ignite chance. A buddy of mine in the stream was just like, hey man, I noticed you're a little bit short. Your ignite chance is a little bit short. If you fix it, things will feel a lot smoother. I fixed my ignite chance because instinctively I went up to fire damage, not down for ignite chance, and I missed some ignite. But you want to be capped ignite. You get 20% from this cluster here from Holy Fire. Down over here from Elemental Mastery, you get another 15%. Up here from the fire wheel, you're going to get another 15% and 15% from these two small nodes here. And then down here, you're going to get another 10% from Holy Dominion, and the rest of it comes from your flask, which is why you have to have a really good flask roll. You get the extra 30% that you're missing from your flask roll. But overall, the character in itself is a whole lot of fun to play. It really specializes in things like Ultimatum. You can do, I've seen Emiracle do tier 17 Abomination. There is a way to do Abomination, but we'll save that for another video. And overall, this character has just been an absolute blast to play. The POV for this character is linked down below. If you have any questions or you get stuck, feel free to leave a comment down below on this video. Come by, stop by the live stream. You know, I've even asked the Emiracle a bunch of questions. He's great. I really, you know, encourage you guys to check out his content as well. But this is what I'm going to leave you with. If you want to see the Ultimatum farming video, leave a comment down below as well. Let me know and I'll make sure to get that video out to you guys. And for now, friends, I'm going to go back to farming. I'm going to go back to making some currency. I'm going to try to see if I can take this build up a step or two, you know, fix a little bit of my problems, get those rest of those gems quality, and kind of go from there. But for now, friends, before I forget, Pantheon's Soul of the Lunaris and Tukohama, which I need to go grab. But for now, friends, I'm going to get this video out to you guys. And if you have any questions, like I said, don't hesitate to ask. But I'll see you all in the next one.